35 years after the riots, maybe a little before that, Newark began to turn the corner. New Jersey Performing Arts Center, NJPAC, is obviously a major contributor to this.
What people talk about as a Newark revival is mainly a lot of government-sponsored building downtown.
You'll often hear, we want to become a world-class city, so let's build an arts center, or let's build a baseball stadium, let's build a hockey arena. Despite the presence of an arts center in Newark, which I think is fine, I patronize it, but that has had absolutely no economic resonance for the majority of Newark residents in our town, and that's been around for about over 10 years. We're hearing the same argument about the proposed hockey arena, that it's going to be an economic engine for Newark. Historical evidence suggests that is not going to happen, and yet we had an administration which pushed this feverishly.
Because that's what city officials and economic development officials, not just in Newark but around the country, do. There's a tremendous constituency that pushes forward these projects because it benefits them. The key to a revival of a city like Newark is not a few public sector buildings in the downtown, but the revival of its neighborhoods.
To understand what's going on in Newark today and the future trajectory for the city, you have to understand the condition of the people. 25% live in poverty. The unemployment rate is 9 to 10%. Here we sit now, in some senses, in worse shape than we were in 1967. Newark right now is a city that's struggling.
Enough! We're breaking our silence! We're breaking our silence! We're taking back Newark! We're taking back Newark!
And this struggle has been going on for a long time.
And Newark, in its heyday, had a population of somewhere between 450,000 and 480,000.
In the period between 1950 and 1990, manufacturing leaves the city, and cities lose middle-class jobs, and a lot of the middle-class population in the Northeast moves out of the city.
In Newark, the middle class also left because crime rose and the police department wasn't effective. They left because the schools weren't effective. They left because they could sense the corruption, because they saw constant cases of Newark officials being indicted and sent to jail. What happened was that anyone who could escape did escape. When your population is falling, your economy is shriveling. Newark's population virtually fell by half. It shrunk to about 280,000. That's an enormous decline.
African Americans who were not able to get out of these communities at that point simply because either they were discriminated against or did not have enough money to move out, got stuck partly in this cycle of poverty.
Not all black people are poor, but of the groups in the United States defined by race, black people are the poorest.
Cities are not viable if they're only poor people. The most active people in civil society and in politics are middle-class educated people.
And it's the middle class who have an understanding of the way things should be, which generates outrage about when things don't match that.
Not enough to sit on the sideline and talk about how bad things are. You got to get out there and struggle to change it.
Those are the people who demand that the garbage get picked up, who demand that we have good public schools.
Newark has not been able to attract or retain those sorts of people. The longer you have intergenerational poverty in a city like Newark, the harder it is for those who are in the city to imagine anything different.
Once public kind of gives up and says, oh, there's nothing we can do about this anymore, that is a recipe for a cycle of decline.
Where you have high rates of unemployment and high rates of poverty, you're going to have high rates of crime.
Poverty itself, I don't believe, breeds crime. I think lack of opportunity breeds criminal behavior. We have new immigrant populations coming into cities like Newark, and they tend to have less crime, and they're poor, than the old poverty population. And part of the reason is their families see opportunity. If you don't see an opportunity for a job, you don't have a father home, your mother never worked, everybody's been on welfare for 3 generations, what is there to see beyond drug dealing and crime opportunities?
Heroin trafficking is probably the greatest problem for inner city Newark. It's mostly motivated by greed.
Most of the young people think that they're going to make all this money because they see the cash roll. They see the guy who's driving the brand new car, and they say, that's what I want. The easy thing is to go out here and say, I'm not going to go to school, I'm not going to work hard in the books, instead I'm going to turn to the drug trade because all I got to do is stand on the corner and let the people come to me who want drugs. It's unfortunate that they kind of dupe these kids into this life.
Those drug dealers would not be allowed and were not allowed to operate in suburban locations. The police made sure of that. It was allowed to operate here. It was allowed to exist here. It was tolerated here in Newark. I mean, the very fact that in 1996, the police director of Newark was indicted on charges of stealing money that was supposed to be used for narcotics investigations. But at that point, you would have thought that the people would have asked a question about, do we change administrations in Newark? The people did not get rid of the corrupt police director. The feds busted him.
If you keep electing the same people who do nothing for you, shame on you.
Only 20% of our kids can even pass the regular high school exam. That's a crisis.
If the schools aren't good enough for your kid and you're a middle class, upper middle class family, a lot of credit to the people who choose to live there, but I wouldn't do it. And it's my hometown, and I have a great feeling for the place.
We have a fraction of kids who are graduating from college. That means that not only is that bad for those kids, but that means the health, the future of the city is in jeopardy, because that's your grist for who are going to be the future leaders of the city.
We'll know when Newark is reviving when, number one, its crime rate goes down, number two, when the graduation rate of its education system goes up, and number three, when its population begins expanding again because its neighborhoods are reviving.
Detroit, Los Angeles, New York City, Dallas, Texas, Miami, Florida. These problems are not just Newark's problems. They're urban America's problems. And really, they're not just urban America's problems. They're America's problems.
I think without direct action in the 60s, much, much less could have been accomplished. If getting into the street is the first step, I say get into the street.
But standing here on Springfield Avenue, you're struck with one thing, the signs on the stores. Credit, charge it, charge everything, easy terms, 36 months to pay, loans, pawnbrokers. These are the advertisements for the poor.
What occurred in Newark in '67 was not a singularity. If people are thinking this could never happen again, they're simply wrong.
I hope that we can in the future have another Newark rebellion, because when I look at the vital signs of the city of Newark, we need a rebellion. We need a revolution.